Scary telling.
I was excited for April Fool's Day, as it was a chance to have some fun with my friends. We were known for our pranks, and this year we had planned something big. Our target was Alex, a fellow student who was known for being a practical joker. We wanted to give him a taste of his own medicine, so we decided to stage a fake break-in at his house. It was going to be elaborate, with smashed windows and overturned furniture. As we set everything up, we were laughing and joking, feeling the rush of adrenaline that comes with pulling off a successful prank. We were all in high spirits, thinking that this was going to be our best prank yet. But then everything went wrong. As we were finishing up, we heard Alex's car pull up outside. We panicked and tried to hide, but Alex saw us and chased after us. In the chaos that followed, Alex fell and hit his head on a coffee table. We were all stunned, not sure what to do. We called an ambulance, but it was too late. Alex was pronounced dead at the hospital. We were all in shock, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Our harmless prank had turned into a tragedy, and we were all responsible. I felt sick to my stomach, knowing that I had played a part in Alex's death. The days that followed were a blur. The police questioned us, but we were too scared to admit what had really happened. We tried to carry on with our lives as if nothing had changed, but we were all haunted by the memory of that night. It was a reminder that our pranks had consequences, and that sometimes the consequences could be deadly. In the days following Alex's death, strange things started happening to my friends and me. We started receiving anonymous phone calls with creepy messages, and we began seeing the ghostly figure of Alex following us everywhere. At first, we tried to brush it off as our imagination, but the sightings became more frequent and vivid. We were all frightened and paranoid, not sure what to do. And then, the first murder happened. Sarah, one of my friends, was found dead in her home. The police ruled it as a homicide, and we were all questioned again. But this time, it was different. We knew that something was wrong, that we were being targeted in some way. The murder shook us to the core. We were all on edge, unable to sleep or function properly. We were afraid for our lives, but we didn't know who to turn to or where to go. And then we saw him again, the ghostly figure of Alex. He was more persistent than ever, haunting us day and night. We knew that he was somehow involved in what was happening, but we didn't know how or why. It wasn't long before the second murder happened, and then the third. Each time, the killer left a note reading April Fools next to the body. We knew that this was connected to our prank gone wrong, that someone was seeking revenge on us for what we had done to Alex. We tried to investigate on our own, but we were always one step behind the killer. We were desperate for answers, but they seemed to elude us at every turn. It was like we were trapped in a nightmare that we couldn't escape from. As the days turned into weeks, we became increasingly isolated and paranoid. We knew that we had to do something, that we couldn't keep living like this. But what could we do? We were just a group of high school students, completely out of our depth. And then one day, we received a message from an unexpected source. It was a psychic, Mrs. Levesque, who claimed that she could help us. She knew about our prank gone wrong and the subsequent murders, and she had some insights into what was happening. We were skeptical at first, but we were also desperate. We agreed to meet with her, hoping that she could shed some light on the situation. Little did we know that our lives were about to take a drastic turn. Meeting with Mrs. Levesque turned out to be one of the most enlightening moments of our lives. She sat us down and explained that we had angered the spirit of Alex, and that he was seeking revenge on us for what we had done to him. We were shocked and scared by her words, but she assured us that there was a way to put things right. We had to confess our involvement in the prank and ask for forgiveness. It was the only way to appease Alex's spirit and stop the murders. At first, we were hesitant to follow her advice. We were afraid that confessing would make things worse, or that we would be arrested for our role in Alex's death. But Mrs. Levesque convinced us that it was the right thing to do, and we finally agreed to try. The first step was to tell our parents what had happened. They were shocked and disappointed, but they also wanted to help us make things right. We then contacted the police and told them the truth about what had happened on the night of the prank. It was a difficult confession to make, but we knew that it was the only way to stop the killer. To our surprise, the police were understanding and sympathetic. They could see that we were genuinely remorseful and that we were trying to make things right. They agreed to keep us under protection while they investigated the case further. Meanwhile, Mrs. Levesque continued to offer her guidance and support. She told us that we needed to face Alex's spirit directly and ask for forgiveness. We were nervous about doing this, but we knew that it was our only chance to stop the murders. One night, we went to Alex's grave and spoke to his spirit. We apologized for what we had done, and we asked for his forgiveness. It was a tense moment, and we weren't sure what to expect. But to our surprise, we felt a sense of peace wash over us. We knew that we had done the right thing, and we hoped that it was enough to stop the killer. Unfortunately, things didn't go as smoothly as we had hoped. The killer was still out there, and he seemed to be getting bolder and more ruthless with each passing day. We were all on edge, wondering when he would strike again. It wasn't until one day, when we received a tip from an unexpected source, that we finally had a breakthrough. The tip led us to a warehouse on the outskirts of town, where we found the killer hiding out. In a tense showdown, we were able to apprehend the killer and bring him to justice. It turned out that he was Alex's twin brother, who had always harbored a grudge against us for what we had done to his brother. We were all shocked and saddened by the revelation, but we were also relieved that it was finally over. In the aftermath of the case, we were all changed. We had learned the hard way that our actions had consequences, and that sometimes those consequences could be deadly. But we had also learned the value of taking responsibility for our mistakes and trying to make things right. It was a lesson that we would never forget. After the killer was apprehended, we thought that everything would go back to normal. But the truth was, we were all still reeling from the events of the past few weeks. We had been through so much, and we weren't sure how to move on from it all. That's when Mrs. Levesque contacted us again. She wanted to meet with us to discuss what had happened and offer our support. We agreed, grateful for her kindness and guidance. During the meeting, Mrs. Levesque spoke to us about the importance of forgiveness and the power of confession. She told us that we had taken an important step by confessing our involvement in the prank, but that we needed to do more to make things right. At first, we were unsure of what she meant. We had already confessed, and we had brought the killer to justice. What more could we do? But Mrs. Levesque explained that we needed to take responsibility for our actions in a more public way. We needed to show the world that we were sorry for what we had done and that we were willing to make amends. We were nervous about the idea of a public confession, but we knew that she was right. We had to do something to make things right, and this seemed like the best way. So, we agreed to hold a press conference. We would stand in front of the cameras and confess our involvement in the prank, and we would ask for forgiveness from Alex's family and the community as a whole. It was a nerve-wracking experience, but we knew that it was the right thing to do. We stood in front of the cameras and told the truth about what had happened. We apologized for our actions and asked for forgiveness. To our surprise, the response was overwhelmingly positive. People could see that we were genuinely remorseful and that we were trying to make things right. Alex's family even reached out to us, thanking us for our honesty and expressing their forgiveness. It was a turning point for us. We realized that by taking responsibility for our actions, we were able to find a sense of closure and peace. We were still haunted by the memories of what had happened, but we were also able to move forward in a positive way. Looking back on it all, I realize how much I've grown as a person. I've learned that my actions have consequences, and that I need to take responsibility for them. But I've also learned that it's never too late to make things right, and that forgiveness is always possible. It's a lesson I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. After the confession, things started to slowly return to normal. We were no longer in the spotlight, and people seemed to have moved on from what had happened. But for us, the memories and the lessons of the past few weeks would always stay with us. We tried to resume our lives as best we could, but there was a sense of loss and sadness that we couldn't shake off. We had lost a friend, and we had been through a traumatic experience that would stay with us forever. But we also knew that we had learned valuable lessons from the experience. We had learned the importance of taking responsibility for our actions and the power of forgiveness. And we had learned that we were stronger than we thought, that we could face challenges and come out the other side. As we started to move forward, we tried to find ways to honor Alex's memory. We organized a fundraiser in his name, and we made a plaque to place on the school's memorial wall. It was a small gesture, but it made us feel like we were doing something positive in the wake of such tragedy. As time went by, the memories of what had happened started to fade. We were no longer haunted by the ghostly figure of Alex, and the nightmares started to disappear. But we knew that we would never forget what had happened, and that it had changed us in profound ways. Looking back on it all, I realized that the prank gone wrong was a wake-up call for all of us. It reminded us of the fragility of life and the importance of being mindful of our actions. And it showed us that sometimes, even in the darkest of moments, there is always a way forward. As I reflect on the experience, I'm grateful for the support of my friends, my family, and Mrs. Levesque. Without them, I don't think we could have made it through. And I'm grateful for the lessons that I learned, even though they came at such a high cost. Now, as I prepare to graduate from high school, I look back on that fateful April Fool's Day with a mix of sadness and gratitude. It was a day that changed my life forever, but it was also a day that taught me so much about myself and about the world around me. And for that, I will always be grateful.